Let's talk about the complications of the past couple of days or so and how they interlink. So first of all, we know the situation ongoing in the Strait of Hormuz is that around 20,000 ships personnel are currently stranded, we're told, according to the latest from Reuters and maritime reports, that they can't leave. The situation is that they are at risk of ongoing missile or drone strikes from Iran. Iran saying that that will stay that way until the war ends. The US, meanwhile, President Trump in the past 48 hours or so, we're hearing about those strikes on Kharg Island. This is where the US forces destroyed military targets. It's the hub for around 90% of Iran's oil exports, to which the US administration is saying that they will continue. They will target the oil facilities themselves unless the Straits of Hormuz are opened again. And at the same time, President Trump calling yesterday on other world leaders to come in to use their military ships to secure this strait. Well, there's been no response of a hard yes so far. A number of countries saying this is a consideration. The German foreign minister in the past couple of minutes saying this, quote, "We are skeptical about an expansion of the operation, any operation in the Straits of Hormuz." Let's bring in Guy Laron, specialist in energy geopolitics, the Middle East and Cold War politics, senior lecturer at Hebrew University of Jerusalem and author of Oil Wars, the struggle for control that has shaped the modern world. Guy, welcome back to France 24. It's great to have you with us tonight. And it is worth saying from the outset, for those that might see you and think, I remember this, man. You've gone viral in the past couple of days or so on the Twitter sphere or X sphere over your comments, the possibility of the US seizing Kharg Island. Does that still hold with what we're seeing unfold? Just explain to us your take and bring it up to date for us.
Okay, so since I wrote this thread that indeed gone viral, the plot only thickened. Okay, so when I tweeted that, it was mere speculation. But now the US has been making like real moves to capture the island. For one thing, it bombed the island last night. And that would be step number one for any attempt to take the island, which is the main terminal from which Iran exports 90% of its oil. So the thinking goes in Washington, and we know that from leaks to the American press, that, Senator Lindsey Graham tweeted it himself yesterday, he who controls the island of Kharg controls Iran, because if Iran can't export from the island of Kharg, it doesn't have revenue. If it doesn't have revenue, it cannot pay the Revolutionary Guards, the Basij, and the army. So the state goes bankrupt. So now we saw the US doing something very real in order to capture the island, which is bombing it, and probably bombing the beach, which is 28 kilometers from the island. The other thing is we know that the USS Tripoli is on its way to the Persian Gulf, carrying 2,500 Marines that were trained especially for missions like that, like taking the island of Kharg. And add to that the fact that we just found that there was an interview in 1988 in which Trump, still a businessman, said that he would like to take the island of Kharg, or to quote him, what he said then, "I would like to do a number on the island of Kharg." So this is pretty much both a 4 decades plan in the making, and also kind of philosophy of how to maintain world hegemony in the eyes of the current president.
You pick up on two very, very important points there. Let's break them down one by one. First of all, on what President Trump said. So this has come out, hasn't it, in the past couple of days. This is an interview with The Guardian from 1988 with Polly Toynbee, the journalist at the time, and he said this. What would he do about Iran, for instance? He says, President Trump at the time, Donald Trump then, "I'd be harsh on Iran. They've been beating us psychologically, making us look like a bunch of fools. One bullet shot at one of our men or ships, I do a number on Kharg Island," as you just said, Guy. "I'd go in," he says, "and take it. Iran can't even beat Iraq, yet they push the US around. It would be good for the world to take them on." Now, we can extrapolate and say that was the plan, or we can simply say he was well aware at the time, and it speaks volumes that that was on his radar, 38 years ago?
Right. So, but there's like historical context. This is the year in which he said it is the last year of the Iran-Iraq War. And he was pretty interested in the Iran-Iraq War. He even bought a full-page ad in the New York Times, quite expensive, to tell the American public that what the American president at the time, Ronald Reagan, was doing in the Persian Gulf was wrong. What the US was doing then in the Persian Gulf was escorting convoys of tankers from the Persian Gulf because Iran, in the framework of the Iran-Iraq War, was attacking tankers in the Persian Gulf. And like Trump's intervention was to say, well, we are using our military assets to help other countries. What we should be doing when we intervene in the Gulf is serve our interest by taking oil to ourselves and controlling choke points like the island of Kharg. So this happened long ago, but you already see that he actually has a worldview.
And whether it's probably worth, given what you've said, and I know you probably don't want to say I told you so at this point, but we are seeing a number of actions that certainly make your thoughts of great import right now. Would you see a move where you think the US could actually target facilities, or that is essentially a nuclear scenario here? What could you see playing out next?
Well, in terms of military operation, I'll start with what is possible and what we know from past history of attempts like that to forcefully take a position like the island of Kharg. So what the US can do is pummel the coast next to the island of Kharg. That would be the Bushehr province. And destroy revolutionary guards and besiege infrastructure in that region so much that the Iranians would have a hard time to respond to a military takeover of the island of Kharg. And then in that scenario, what you need to do is get the Iranian staff from the island once, plug the terminal, and then back off, redraw, and then lay a siege on the island. Like initially, what you want to do is hold that island hostage. Whether that is possible in the age of drones and how steep would be the price that the American Navy and American Army would have to pay for this, that is an open question. But I think what we're beginning to understand, and that's true for the Israelis and for the Iranians and for the Americans, that everybody are doubling down, raising their stakes, raising their gamble, not backing down, because what we see now is a structural crisis. This is beyond Trump.
It's very interesting when we hear the rhetoric, the language to a directed audience, an intended audience from President Trump, saying we've destroyed their military, and yet we see the drones still fired. So there might be the military formal, but there's also the Revolutionary Guard and the ability to fire drones. We're told, reports suggest there are something like, as of 2 days ago, a stock of at least 70,000 Shahed drones, and they're being manufactured all the time. It's kind of a cat and mouse race to find them. And even on the Straits of Hormuz, an asymmetric warfare, analysts suggest that you could send them off from a parking garage or from a parking lot in areas where they might not be detected by satellites. It's a very difficult challenge. You point to that challenge on Kharg Island as well. To which gets us to an area when you're looking at this play out. We've mentioned the comments back in '88. You sent that viral message about what you thought might play out a few days ago before this action happened. Do you take from that President Trump had made this decision 16 days ago? Or do you think he is playing this depending on where this is going? As you say, as other actors are doubling down, he's moving.
Well, I think his initial thought that it would be much easier. And as he said, he had Iranian leaders in mind that he would like to talk to. Problem was that they were killed in Israel's initial strike/assassination in the very first hours of the war. So it seems to me like there was a plan A, and it failed, and he has no one to talk to. There's no Delcy Rodriguez in Iran, and if there was, he died. So now we're into Plan B. And Plan B would be a military intervention to take the island of Kharg. But that moves the discussion one step further. So why is it important to do it now?
Yes, the
And I
intent.
think the real, yeah, I think the real context is this escalating Cold War with China, because China has a real leverage over Trump, which she used in the previous summit, which is China's monopoly of rare earth minerals supply. It controls 90% of global supply. And basically, she used that to force Trump to back off from his punitive tariff policy. And rumors are that she wants to do that again in the coming summit, this time to force Trump to remove restrictions on the export of advanced chips and the machines that make chips. So, and that would be a huge defeat for the US. So the basic idea is to take control, to take American control over the region from which China imports half of its crude and 30% of the LNG that China imports, and do that in a way that would be a strategic surprise to China, because China always thought that if something like that would happen, it would happen in the Straits of Malacca. And it prepared its navy to deal with a scenario like that. It cannot intervene, China, in what happens in the Persian Gulf, not yet. So if this works out, then Trump can come to the summit that, again, is going to take place at the end of this month. And when meeting Xi, says, okay, you hold our windpipe when it comes to rare earth minerals, but I have leverage over you because I control your gas station, so to speak.
Right. So if we look at which again, the amount of increasing reliance or increasing use, shall we say, from Beijing of Kharg Island and Iranian oil. In Plan A, as you term, the crude term that's being used militarily, decapitate and delegate. If that hasn't happened, we can shift away to this particular point, and which takes us to the risks and the parallels. We hear a lot of analysts talking about 1973, the last serious oil crisis, big ramifications and recession. If this goes into that territory, which you suggest, where do you see the parallels with 1973?
Okay, so we have to separate between two kinds of fuel. One is oil, and the other is liquefied natural gas. So in terms of oil, we're in a better position, specifically because the trauma of the 1970s. Since the 1970s, several things happened to prepare the global economy for a scenario like that. Okay, there was a massive supply shock, although, truth be told, we were never in a situation that 20% of the world's oil were taking off the market. That's, again, uncharted territory, never happened before. And never before, by the way, the Straits of Hormuz were closed. But in any case, you have the International Energy Agency, which is a club of the consuming states where they can meet together and think about how to deal with the situation, how to avoid panic buying, which always makes the situation much worse. And that already works, right? You've heard about the release of 400 million barrels of oil. So that's mechanism number one. Mechanism number two is pipelines that bypass the Straits of Hormuz. Saudi Arabia has one. The United Arab Emirates has one, and that means that they can export a little less than half than what crosses the Straits of Hormuz daily. About 10 million barrels a day. That's what they can, the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia can export through the bypass Hormuz pipelines. So we're in a little bit better situation with regard to oil than with regard to gas.
And if
In
we
the
look at
1970s, we didn't have.
It's
Yeah,
a,
go ahead.
no, you take us into another area, which is well described 1973 and that particular time, and the concern. Two big effects back then, it's worth saying: recession and punishing incumbent leaders around the world. It seems to be, particularly within your book as well, it seems to be a point where who's the incumbent? Okay, if I'm looking around to vote, that's not where I want to go. Does that help us explain perhaps the fears right now of current world leaders and particularly President Trump?
Absolutely. But,
It's the risk versus
there's this,
reward.
yes, I mean, there's this famous meme, some of you are going to die in this war, but this is a price I'm willing to take. And the same thing with Trump. I think he's playing a very high stakes game, and he's willing to sacrifice a lot to win it. Because, if this doesn't work out, this is America's Suez Crisis moment. This is 1956. This is what 1956 did to the British Empire, which was, it is known as the lion's last roar, because it was the last act of the British Empire in the Middle East, the Suez Crisis. So the same thing will happen here. If America can't control, with this huge navy and massive military deployment, if it cannot control Straits of Hormuz, it is a superpower no longer. And Donald Trump is kind of an American Guy Mollet, or an American Anthony Eden.
I'm minded of the Pottery Barn rule. I'm thinking back to 2003 and the Colin Powell comment: "You break it, you own it," which we're hearing President Trump saying to other world leaders, "Come and help secure the Straits." Perhaps it's a different expression for this current government right now. Great to talk to you tonight, Guy. Really nice to have your thoughts tonight. Guy Laron, specialist in energy geopolitics, the Middle East as well, senior lecturer of Hebrew University of Jerusalem, and author of Oil Wars as well, a struggle for control that shaped the modern world.